Hello, my name is Philip Benson and I'm going to talk to you today about systematic reviews. So the aim of this lecture is to introduce the concept of a systematic review. The objective of the lecture is at the end you should know what a systematic review is, why it is different from a traditional narrative review, what are the advantages of a systematic review. You should know where to look for systematic reviews. And I'm going to introduce you to the concept of a simple forest plot, which summarizes a lot of the data in a systematic review. So what is a systematic review? This is a definition by Chalmers and Altman, and it says a review that has been prepared using a systematic approach to minimizing biases and random errors, which is documented in a materials and methods section. And the important words here are materials and methods. Many traditional narrative reviews did not have a materials and methods section. This meant that you were unsure about how authors had found the data that they were including in the review, how they decided to include studies in their review or exclude studies. And you were not sure whether they were just choosing articles that supported their point of view. So there was an inherent bias in that approach. The idea of a systematic review, it is completely open and explicit, and you can see exactly how they have produced their review. You can criticize that if you like, but it is completely open and explicit. And it's to remove the element of bias. This pyramid here you've probably seen many times throughout this course. It is appropriate for the areas of research that I am interested in, which is the effects of any healthcare intervention, and in my areas any orthodontic interventions, appliances, braces that we use, how effective they are at treating a patient's malocclusion. You can see from this pyramid that the randomized controlled trial is considered a higher form of evidence than a case control study or a case series. But you can see that a systematic review of randomized controlled trials is actually a higher level of evidence than an RCT, and the very top level of evidence is a meta-analysis, which I'll explain a bit more about later on in this lecture. So why do we undertake systematic reviews? Well, as I've already said, the main reason for undertaking a systematic review is to minimize bias. Because it is carried out in an open and explicit way, you are able to determine exactly why authors have included or excluded studies in the review. We're all very busy clinicians. Many articles are published every year. And it is impossible for us to keep up with the whole of the dental literature or the scientific literature. So the systematic reviews are a way of ensuring that you can keep up to date with an area of research that you're interested in. They are carried out in a very structured manner, and you are able to assess the validity of the data that are presented. In many aspects, they are also applicable to day-to-day practice, and the authors very often include a summary of the implications of the results, not only to those who are interested in doing further research, but also those who are interested in improving their clinical practice. And just as importantly, a systematic review will guide a reviewer to report their work explicitly and concisely. There's nothing worse than having to work through a paper to try and find out the implications of the results. So that's a bit of background about systematic reviews. where can you find them? Well, the main area that I'm going to talk about is the work of the Cochrane Collaboration. I've undertaken 5 systematic reviews in collaboration with the Cochrane group in Manchester, and that's the main one that I'm going to talk about today. But there are other organisations that undertake systematic reviews. Another one in the UK is the Centre for Reviews and Dissemination in York, and we'll look at a couple of the reviews that they have carried out. And in the UK, the Health Technology Assessment, part of the National Institute of Health Research, also commissions systematic reviews in certain areas, and we'll talk a little bit about one of their reviews later. So I'm going to talk about the work of the Cochrane Collaboration. The Cochrane Collaboration is an organisation that was set up 20 years ago, and the mission statement is here. It was designed to prepare, maintain and promote the accessibility of systematic reviews, in particular in the area of healthcare interventions, which is an area that we are interested in. It was named after a British epidemiologist who was a strong advocate of evidence-based medicine called Archie Cochrane. Unfortunately, he died before the Cochrane Collaboration was set up, but it was very much an idea that he had during his lifetime. The first Cochrane Centre was opened in 1992, but it wasn't officially set up until 1993. There are over 50 specialist groups. It covers all areas of medicine, and the group that we're particularly interested in as dentists is the oral health group, which started not long after the start of the Cochrane Collaboration. The oral health group was founded and was based in Manchester since 1997. The Cochrane Collaboration produces a number of publications under the auspices of the Cochrane Library. The main publication that we will be interested in, and I'll show you about, is the Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews. That contains all the reviews that are undertaken in medicine and dentistry under the auspices of the Cochrane Collaboration. But the Cochrane Library contains a controlled trials register. This is a register that has been prepared by people who have hand-searched all the medical literature. As we know, that is the most accurate way of identifying all the studies that we are interested in, randomised controlled trials principally. It's much more accurate than electronic searching of the literature. So volunteers have carried out hand searching of all the medical literature, including the dental literature, and all the studies that have been identified by that hand searching have been coordinated in the Cochrane Controlled Trials Register. So if you're going to undertake a systematic review, that's a good place to start your search. The final publication that I mentioned here is the Database of Abstracts and Reviews. This includes all conference abstracts, which very often do not end up in the peer-reviewed literature. So, what is the advantage of a Cochrane systematic review? Well, first of all, they are structured in a very formal manner. Every review has a similar structure, so they're easy to find information. It's well defined because they're structured in a very formal way. Each area is extremely well defined. It's all open and explicit. It's a very rigorous process for each stage of the production of a review, including the title, the protocol, and the final review is peer-reviewed, and you get feedback at each stage, so it can be improved. It's kept up to date. So once you sign up to do a Cochrane review, you're signing up for life. You are signing up to update that review every 2 to 5 years. And if it's not updated, it will be removed from the Cochrane Library. And they're designed to be accessible by everyone, not just clinicians. They also are accessible by lay people and healthcare consumers, patients who wish to get the most up-to-date and reliable information. So each review is also seen by and commented on by a lay consumer group who have a huge input into each review.